Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.
Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. I'm Jean Till, and on today's show we're visiting with Brandy Ficek, doctor, graduate of St. Albert, and will be the keynote speaker at Bishop's Celebration of Catholic Schools coming up here in September.
We look forward to that visit with her, and I think she's kind of excited about this, too, this recognition, and what a tribute to St. Albert Catholic School. But here we are. I think this is kind of a period of almost like a Marian octave. We celebrated the Feast of the Assumption yesterday, one of my favorite feast days of the whole year, and it does always kind of mark for me the transition back to school. We know our Holy Family Des Moines schools have been in school for a month already, but we'll be with our teachers and educators all through next week. The Des Moines area metro, along with Perry, St. Patrick, and other schools will be joining us at the St. Boniface Waukee. Tom Quinlan of the St. Joseph Evangelization Center will be guiding us through a morning and afternoon reflection. We'll have Mass with them. So what a wonderful way to start off the school year. On Thursday, we'll be with the St. Albert community, and we'll be able to have Mass with them also. So it'll be a tremendous time. Looking forward to today, the wonders of teletransportation. We'll be in Audubon this morning, Audubon, to celebrate Mass with the good people there and have a Eucharistic procession out to the city park where that famous landmark, Albert the Bull, is. But we'll be making...
part of every procession.
We'll make sure that the images that are provided from that event do not give the impression that we are worshiping Albert the Bull. That didn't work out too well for the prophets of Baal with Ezekiel, so we will not retrace those steps. But it should be a grand day, a little warm, but in the morning it should be a beautiful trek from the church, and it's all downhill from St. Patrick's Church.
You're not processing back?
Wonderful. No, we are not. So I don't know how we'll get back there, but it'll be a good day. And then on Sunday, tomorrow, we get to be at St. Mary of Avoca as the good people there celebrate 150 years as a faith community.
Wow.
What a legacy. So 150 years, Father Seth Owusu, their pastor, and all those good people. So, and I bet they'll throw a pretty good party. Their counterparts over at St. Patrick Walnut, who celebrated their 150th a year or so ago, all as well there. Also get to be with our catechetical leaders on Tuesday as they'll prepare for a year of faith formation. Joe Paprocki, a famous national author in catechetics, talking about evangelizing catechesis. So that's kind of where we want to be, that we're not just communicating content, but we're witnessing to the gospel of Christ, to the suffering, death, and resurrection, and providing those moments of encounter that we want to have for our young people, that we ourselves crave. So as we prepare to talk to Dr. Ficek, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, she'll set us straight if we aren't, kind of thinking about this vocation of healthcare. Again, that rich document, Antiqua et Nova, that the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith and for Cultures released earlier this year. And among things, considering the role of artificial intelligence and how it's going to obviously be a boon to the healthcare industry, but also some cautions as well, that it doesn't encroach then on this sense of the vocation responsibility to be guardians and servants of life that carries that intrinsic ethical dimension expressed in the Hippocratic Oath, but that following the example of the Good Samaritan, this commitment is to be carried out by men and women who reject the creation of a society of exclusion and instead act as neighbors, lifting up and rehabilitating the fallen for the sake of the common good. So just, that AI is not used to enhance but replace the relationship. This is where it would be a concern between patients and healthcare providers, that terminal, that console interposed between them and that physical space can perhaps be a deflection of the attention, leaving patients to interact with a machine rather than a human being, and reducing this relational structure to an impersonal one. Instead of encouraging solidarity with the sick and suffering, such applications would risk worsening the loneliness that often accompanies illness, especially in the context of a culture where persons are no longer seen as a paramount value to be cared for and respected. The misuse of AI would not align with respect for the dignity of the human person and solidarity with the suffering. So we're sure that Dr. Ficek, who's dedicated herself to this calling, will be able to give a sense of the proper orientation of all things and her passion for people, bringing them that human dimension of Christ the healer.
Well, and with that, we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we'll be visiting with Brandy Ficek, a doctor, graduate of St. Albert, and she will be the keynote speaker at Bishop's Celebration of Catholic Schools on September 13th. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network. Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. And on today's show, we're visiting with Brandy Ficek. She is a doctor, a graduate of St. Albert, and the keynote speaker at Bishop's Celebration of Catholic Schools on September 13th.
That's coming up in a couple of weeks. But Dr. Ficek, thank you for making time for us here on Making It Personal. And I'd love to hear kind of how your whole kind of calling to healthcare, the vocation that for which we have great respect as a kind of sacred charge to share in Christ's healing ministry. So appreciate the time that you're taking with us today, and it'll be exciting to be with you in person here in Des Moines on September 13th. So just as a physician, did you grow up in the Council Bluffs area, or was that something that your family moved there?
No, absolutely. I was born and raised there. My family still lives there, so I still consider it my home.
Wonderful, wonderful. Will they be able to be present, any of them, on September 13th?
Yes, actually. So I'm the youngest of 5 siblings, and they've been my biggest supporters my entire life. And so even now at 43, anything that I do, they come back, they show up. So both of my parents and all of my brothers and sisters will be there.
That's
so
very
it's going to be a great time.
Did you have an unwritten rule growing up that if you weren't yourself performing or competing, that you should be present when your siblings were, or not?
Pretty much. I mean, again, I'm the youngest, and so I had to go to basically everyone else's things. So whether that was sports or academics, I was always there. But I think it was great because it helped me to learn.
Tremendous. So.
And no whining. Yes, you have to go to this ball game.
There was some whining, but I don't remember that part. Yeah.
Growing up in the greater Council Bluffs and Omaha area, certainly some fine healthcare institutions there with Creighton and University of Nebraska Omaha Medical Center. How was this whole interest piqued for you? Was science something that you gravitated toward, and life science in particular?
That's a funny question. I have early memories, at 3 and 4 years old, but I don't ever remember wanting to be anything other than a doctor. It was one of the hardest questions I got asked on one of my medical school interviews was, why did you want to become a doctor? I just always have. I think that's just always been in me. I can point to certain things. I had a great, family physician growing up who always engaged me in everything, so I was never afraid to go to the doctor. I loved him, wanted to be just like him. My mom was a nurse, and so explained everything to me, whether it was just a scratch on my knee or something else, and I just was so enthralled with the field of medicine. And I think more important than that, it was ingrained in me that we're all given gifts, and those gifts are meant to help others, and so we have to try and figure out how to do that. And I have never thought of another way outside of being a physician that I could use my gifts to help others. And so for me, it was just something I was always meant to be.
Beautiful. And so your mom kind of unfolding the processes of healing and the parts of the body. Was the body itself a kind of fascinating thing? That, wow, God, look what you've done here, with these bodies we've got.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think if you look at me and my sister, it's funny, she's brilliant. But, the sight of a scratch or something like that turns her stomach, not interested in it at all. For me, I just thought it was amazing. If somebody wanted to give me a shot, I watched the whole thing. I wanted to know what was in it. I just have always found it really amazing what the body does and then what we've learned to do with it.
Ah, well, that's fascinating. You were one of those little girls. I mean, if you came across a dead animal, or you weren't obviously dissecting neighbors' cats or anything like that.
No. Now, that is definitely not who I was. I remember once seeing a bird get caught by a cat, and that brought me to tears. So that was not who I was.
So natural reservoir of compassion there for all God's creatures. Did St. Albert and teachers and others, you mentioned the physician mentor and your own mom, were there other key figures at St. Albert's who encouraged you in this path?
Oh, yes. I think I felt encouraged from the minute I joined St. Albert's. So I started at St. Albert's in first grade and went all the way through high school. And I think what's really special about St. Albert's, and I'm sure a lot of our schools in our diocese, is that they really just encourage us to explore all of our interests. And so even though I always wanted to be a physician and I was always involved in sports, they still allowed me to explore other avenues. And I think that's made me a more well-rounded person. So whether that was theater, which I had no ability in, or other things, I still got the ability to participate in that and see how that could still benefit me in my future career. I think specifically back to, one of my coaches, and he would always tell others who were, helping us out at practice or things like that, you need to explain things a little bit different to Brandy. And at first I didn't really understand what he meant, but, he later explained to me, he's like, you think through things in a much different way than others, and so we just needed to show you support and let you find your own path. And that was always nice that people noticed that.
Oh, so not a drama queen, but very analytical in a way. Yeah.
Well, at least I tried not to be, but maybe I was on occasion.
Great compassion, but also a competitive spirit, and did that serve you along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you would ask people that went to school with me, that would be something that they would have noticed. It was very competitive, no matter what it was, whether it was sports or academics or student council, just always trying to, use what I've given to the best of my ability. And so not necessarily competitive with other people, but just wanting to make sure that, I did my part.
There's a phenomenon that I think is not something to be critical of, but oftentimes for students in our Catholic schools and their families, the school becomes as much the locus of their faith life as their parish. How did that play out for you and your family? Which parish affiliation did you have, and how was that faith and maybe expressed more at St. Albert or more in the faith or other service opportunities that you had?
Yeah, so we were longtime members of Queen of the Apostles in Council Bluffs. And, I just think that it was such a good opportunity because not only then was I learning about faith when I was going to Mass on Sundays or when I was spending time with my family, but we learned so much more from our peers and from our school during that time. And so going to St. Albert's, making sure that we were going to Mass, it was just an ever-present thing in my life. So whether that was praying all together before a game or after a game or at the beginning of a school day. It was just helping make sure that we knew that God was present in everything that we were doing.
Oh, beautiful. And maybe a few characters among the clergy along the way that, for better or worse, left their mark on you in a good way, hopefully inspiring you also to pursue this path. So your trajectory, your horizon toward medical school, did that influence your choice of undergraduate education?
Yeah, definitely. Again, since I always knew that this was my journey, that I wanted to be a physician, I really wanted to go into the path that would lead me towards that. And so after graduating school, I actually went into engineering, which is not the most maybe logical path, but for me, I thought it was. I thought that would make my resume a little bit unique versus those who are going strictly into a science-based field. But it would also teach me more of the problem solving that I would need once I became a physician. And in everything that I did was really centered around that. So I ran track in college, but wanted to make sure that my practices didn't interfere with my education because I knew my long-term goal was being a physician. And even in getting involved in service projects and things like that, they all were kind of centered towards healing and helping others in need.
Wow. So was it biomedical engineering or another form of engineering?
Yeah, actually chemical engineering.
Okay.
With a focus in biomedical. And then I did biochemistry on top of that just to make sure I would get all of my, prerequisites done. And then I had an amazing teacher while I was in high school who taught history, Mr. Kimball, who was the first person to make me do essay tests instead of, multiple choice, which for me just opened up this new avenue of like how deep you can learn things. And so I actually pursued a minor in history because of that, just because I had such a great experience in high school from that.
Wow, you are a poster child for Catholic education, the well-rounded person with humanities and science and math. And we'll have to connect you with Father Jake Epstein, pastor now of St. Peter's in Council Bluffs, himself a chemical engineering major in his undergrad and worked in the field before entering seminary. So, he too is a extremely well-rounded person in all of this. You had your options for medical school, but you looked east to to the Carver College of Medicine at the University of Iowa, a place near and dear to many of us and maybe some of our listeners. How was that experience? And here you are at a public institution and a fairly large class. And any particular memories of how that propelled you along the way?
Oh, yeah, I loved it. When I interviewed, it was the first place that, again, it kind of just felt like home. And when I say that, I mean when I was talking with the professors and even the other students, it really felt like it was more mission-driven and purpose-driven versus just another career. And that was something that was really important to me, that be the center of why we were learning. And then it was also amazing because my sister was in grad school at the same time, so I got to live with my sister, who's been my best friend my whole life, and just meet so many other people with different backgrounds and different end goals, but still just really hoping that all of us could find our way in how we help others through difficult times.
So beautiful! What a blessing for both you and your sister there. So, it just sounds like you're about so many things. Did you learn to survive on 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night, or how did that go?
Hey, I have to credit my dad for that. I've never been a good sleeper, and so that was one of the easier parts of medical school for me because I never usually like to sleep anyway. But really, I love the way that the University of Iowa does things. You get such great support that, it doesn't feel overwhelming. It's exciting to learn those things. It's exciting to start to get to work in clinicals and see the amazing, instructors, professors, and physicians that you get to work with and what they're doing. And so it never really felt that overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. And among their top-ranked programs, family medicine is one of them, and did you gravitate toward that right away, or was that part of a discernment as you did your rotations?
No, when I started, I always thought that I wanted to work with people who had cancer, and that came from an experience of just seeing what my grandfather had to go through when he had cancer, but really approached all of my rotations with an open mind, just trying to see, what would fit the best, and honestly, I just couldn't choose between did I want to work with adults or did I want to work with kids, and I loved the fact that you could follow an entire family and see them through their journey, and so that's what really pushed me into family medicine, is being able to see that entire journey and making sure I was taking care of the whole family and not just an individual.
Mm-hmm. And so that maybe is part of the distinction for you, why you didn't seek, you're working with people with cancer and their families, but you didn't go into the oncology specialty per se, but kept that broader focus. Is that accurate, or how would you describe that distinction for you and why it was a good fit for you in family medicine?
Why it was a good fit, yeah. So when I had entered med school, so I do palliative medicine now, and I had never even heard of that. When I did my oncology rotation, I worked with the most amazing oncologists, but I found myself not really gravitating towards the field, and that was really unexpected for me. And as someone who's always been able to kind of plan out each step with clarity, I felt a little bit lost. And he asked me at that point, he said, "Have you ever heard of palliative medicine?" And I hadn't. And he said, "You're really good with patients, and I can see that what we're doing here isn't quite fitting." He's like, "But I think you would be a great fit for that." And so had to learn more about that and really seeing that what I had always envisioned was having a patient and their family sit in front of me and just having them tell me, what was hard about what they were going through, and then how could I fix that? And that's really what palliative medicine is. So it's less about I'm going to put together this chemotherapy protocol and I'm going to make sure you're getting all of these scans, but it's more about what I just view as this pure form of medicine where if someone is suffering, if someone is struggling, whether that's just with the fear of the unknown or it's the pain that's coming from their disease or it's wanting to help support their kids through things, my job is to listen to that and try and figure out a way to get through that. And I just love that because every day is different and every individual is unique.
I'm sure in our listening audience in the Spirit Catholic Radio and Iowa Catholic Radio networks, they're all saying, this is exactly the kind of physician I hope I have or my loved one has. So it's so beautiful. If I may inject here, just real quickly before we go to the break, from the Doctrine Committee, this is a little advanced scoop for people as the ethical and religious directives for healthcare will be revised. The U.S. bishops will be voting this fall at their plenary meeting in Baltimore. But just one little quote here that's a new addition to the ethical and religious services. Catholic health care services strive to support those who suffer from life-limiting illness with the full range of multidisciplinary palliative care in order to address suffering that may be physical, psychological, and spiritual. While such care includes effective pain relief therapy and symptom management, it also includes human accompaniment to counteract the isolation and loneliness that they may experience, and spiritual accompaniment, which should be available to help them to appreciate the Christian understanding of redemptive suffering and to strengthen faith and hope in God. So I just kind of leave those words there for our people to ponder over the break, and Dr. Ficek, we'll hope you'll stay with us when we come back.
We're going to take that short break, and when we return with Dr. Brandy Ficek, a graduate of St. Albert in Council Bluffs and our keynote speaker at the Bishop's Celebration of Catholic Schools. You can join us on September 13th for that event. To get tickets, go online to dmdiocese.org, and you can just search in the search button for Bishop's Celebration of Catholic Schools. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on the Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network. Welcome back to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen.
During the break, Jean, I bought a ticket to the Bishop's Celebration of Education.
You're gonna go? All right.
All the more with Dr. Ficek, and this is going to be worthy. So, Dr. Ficek, you Iowa City, and then the path, I understand, led you to the Phoenix area and now Topeka, Kansas. Can you describe how were those choices made? Were these areas you intended to land in, or was it just that the match with the physicians groups was a good one for you?
Yeah, I think going through med school and looking at the match, again, you interview at a lot of programs. And for me, I wanted to make sure that the program that I ended up with would give me the best exposure and autonomy and learning. And so that was a primary point. And at that time, too, I had met my husband, and he was going into radiation oncology, so we needed to find a place that really met both of our goals because we actually matched together. And so we were lucky enough that actually Arizona was our top choice. We were able to go there. I did have some family down there, which made it nice. We spent about 10 years down there, loved it. But after having a few surgeries where I was needing assistance, my family having to fly in, we made the decision that we wanted to come back to the Midwest to be closer to our families.
A strong theme throughout all of this. So in Topeka, Kansas, I don't know, you have to hang around with those Kansas fans down there or not?
Hey,
it's okay, Bishop.
University of Kansas for undergrad.
All right. Well, that you never mentioned where. That's why I was trying to draw that out. So you kept that in your pocket. So
right.
I'm not going to apologize.
I'm a Jayhawk and a Hawkeye.
I'm not going to apologize. That's a curious blend there. It's Big 12, Big 10. But anyway, I won't go there. I could easily get it. Palliative care, and I framed it a little bit from the ethical religious directives. Contrast that with what we're seeing, and again, that ongoing drumbeat for the legalization of physician-assisted suicide, the state of New York, obviously the states in the northwest part of the country, sometimes even under the guise of hospice. And so hospice could mean many things. I've been privileged to be affiliated with various hospices on boards and things like that. Could you help us distinguish and why palliative care is more consistent with a kind of a Christian understanding of the human person and life and death?
I think what a lot of people don't understand is when people are facing serious illness, a lot of the fear is about what's going to happen and what is that going to look like. And the fear comes from not wanting to suffer. And so palliative care is kind of taking that back and saying we have strategies, we have support to alleviate that suffering and knowing that there's still so much life to be lived. And so that's a conversation I have with patients and families every day because it can feel like when you get an incurable illness or that diagnosis, that there might not be much left for you, but trying to help them understand and really help their whole family along the way, seeing that, every day that we're given is a gift and we can make the most of it. And sometimes we see the most amazing things in those end moments. So my job is just to make sure we take away those fears, we take away that suffering, and really give them back that respect, that excitement for life.
Oh, again, that's what we want, that there's grace to be had in every moment, and that our horizon ultimately extends beyond, but the claiming in this life all that God would have us. you can alleviate a lot of physical suffering, but what about this desire, this intractable need for some people to be in control? What have you witnessed there, and how do you respond to people who maybe are so, if they can't be in control, they would really rather just kind of end it all?
Yeah, I think that's, something that's very difficult. I'm a person who likes to control things too, but that doesn't always work. But at the same time, I think it's just about listening to what they want that control over. I think when it boils down to it, most people just want to have dignity at the end. A lot of people don't want to be a burden. And so just finding out what those fears are, what that need for control really is centered on, and giving them that. And so there's a lot of ways that we can still do that, still give them the control. What does this look like? Who do you want to be there? What are the things that you want to accomplish? And I think making sure that people are given those options, because so often, in medicine, it becomes prescriptive.
Wow.
If you have this is what you do.
Dr. Ficek, you have dignified us in this time. I look so forward to being with you at that event on September 13th. But blessings on you in your practice of medicine. And again, I'm so grateful as you open this up for us today.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks to all of you for joining us today on Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. Thanks to our guest. And you can hear us on Iowa Catholic Radio Network and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Making It Personal is provided by Sarah Vocations Ministry. Learn more at joinserra.org.